joke all the time here in our houses, put us in the finest home whenever we start to get crazy. But, we're going to be left out in the dark because we're not going to have these kids around. And that's what we need. We need more of that heart, that innocence, and we need more of these people or these children and their personalities moving forward.
I agree 1,000%. Where are you guys at? Are you in Minnesota?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay. Have you had any luck working with Wisconsin legislature on a state level? Have you gone down that road at all?
We've done one bill that we tried to get passed, was actually called JC's Law, that kind of fell flat. And it was because what it was we were looking for them to create a fund that would allow organizations, big businesses, to donate their money to a coffer that we would then be able to use to be put out for research to hospitals and research labs in here that we would be able to regulate, but it would be there'd be tax credits. And the current the current state of legislation here, whatever party lines and stuff, they don't like tax credits here in Wisconsin. So that was a no-no. So I tried to revamp it this year, and obviously we're going through elections now. So until we get through the end of the year with the new governor, we'll see. I'm hoping that we can do something. I know that within the state, I believe the ACCO is also working on something here that's very similar, except that the money would come from the government versus coming from businesses. So I know that's been going for a couple of years, trying to get it passed as well. But we are also, we are one of the states in the country that has $0 that goes to pediatric cancer research. I mean, it goes to the hospitals, and that's wonderful. It goes to our UW college system, but it's not directed. And if anybody can, just the general easy way to understand it is if money gets thrown into a big pot, everybody tries to get it first. And unless it's earmarked, it's not going where it needs to go, at least from our standpoint.
I asked because I'm looking we're in Kansas City on the Kansas side. And so we have some other very active pediatric cancer foundations in the state of Kansas as well. And have you seen what Kentucky has done on a state level with pediatric cancer?
I just saw recently that they made a big investment. Yeah.
Kentucky Pediatric Cancer Advocacy Fund. I was saying it wrong, but I believe, essentially the state government is kicking in. They are somehow collecting, and I don't have the specifics on it, they are somehow collecting revenue. This fund has over the years grown very large, and I believe they're injecting $2.5 million a year, something along those lines. Again, don't quote me on the dollar amounts and all of the specifics, but they are very actively participating in the development of, treatment facilities, abilities for Kentucky families to stay closer to home if, and God forbid, when something like this happens. And so very cool model. And I'm kind of looking at what they've done. I know Iowa, I believe, has just also recently committed to something pretty cool in the pediatric cancer vein specifically. I don't have the specifics on it, but I am very interested in seeing, kind of like I said, is Kansas in a position where we're spending $0 outside of supporting. We've got Children's Mercy, phenomenal children's hospital in Kansas City. Wichita also has a children's hospital, but I just don't know kind of what that landscape is. And so I'm getting ready to kind of I'm going to start with our local in the state government, the senator responsible for our district and the representative responsible for our district. And I was considering putting together like a mini climb the hill for like McKenna's friends that are kind of in that 13-year-old, still really processing a lot of this. A lot of them are incredibly active as far as our events. They come to our stuff. They love to see us. And so if any of them wanted the opportunity to speak out about their experience in losing their best friend in 5th grade, our family, our close friends, and we take a group up to Topeka and we start talking to people. And so, that's kind of where I was going to start. And ideally kind of in, long ways off goal would be engaging enough support through the state. We're in the same boat where we've got a governor election going on, so we'll kind of have to see how a lot of that lands. But home run, 5 years down the road, we've got a pediatric Kansas pediatric cancer endowment fund, or something along those lines, that's injecting cash into helping Kansas and Kansas families, and bring research here and bring treatments here so people don't have to travel as far, and all of, again, that's an elephant to eat in and of itself, I feel like. I was just kind of wondering what you guys had going on. It sounds like you're about in the same boat, as you're just kind of feeling out the landscape and waiting for stuff to happen. And obviously you would love to engage, but you're trying to figure out exactly how to really make that happen in order to make it productive, which is exactly where we're at. So if you get any tips, let me know.
Believe me, listen, legislation or trying to get that stuff going it's about 99% disappointment and 1% moving forward. And it's tough, but if you have, it's the same, we did the same thing kind of looking around, and the idea for the bill that we were trying to pass came from Pennsylvania. They had put something in they actually wrote it that way, and then it ended up in their state budget. So there's something going in that manner. I know there's several states also, they have a spot on your driver's license renewal where you can check and have it go into a fund. So, I mean, there's things out there, like little
Sure.
sprinkles of it happening. And I think it comes from, unfortunately, not from our government side. It comes from organizations. It comes from philanthropy. We're the ones that are putting in the work to, and I'm proud of that. But it's also a lot more weight on our shoulders. It shouldn't be there, but it is coming. The people are coming together, and we are getting stronger and louder in this community. And more states are realizing that this is a real issue. And I have everything that I've ever thought of, any idea that I've come across, anything that I've wanted to push here in Wisconsin, I've never wanted proprietary anything on it. I want it to be a blueprint if it can be used somewhere else, because I think we need across the country to see these things happening. Specifically for us, I've been trying for years, and at some point it's going to happen. If I have to find a way to fund it, myself, is, for us at UW, we have a full adult brain bank where they study, they have human brains where they can study them. That's adults only. I want one for kids, but I want one for kids and pediatric rare brain tissues that we don't have. Because when you study, something like leukemia cells, or you study neuroblastoma, or something that maybe you have that's a lot more prevalent, that you have the tissue samples or the blood samples, the cells, then, there's more of it to go around. When you have rare type of brain cancers and things like that you don't have the samples, the studies aren't happening. Therefore, there's no progress. And
Correct.
so, we need those state level. And for me, I look at it, and the way I approach it is a UW system here in Wisconsin is probably one of the most richest through endowments of any across the country. And our governor at the time right now loves to dump money, millions and hundreds of millions of dollars every year into this university, which is wonderful. But they also have, because I've been able to meet with them and walk the labs where they're studying neuroblastoma and things like that, they have some of the brightest and incredible minds, and these students that are looking for that next discovery. I want to give them the tools that they need to, for me, I was always a road less traveled. If I go into a room and they say, okay, we're going to study XYZ, I want the one with dust on it in the corner that nobody's looking at, because I'm going to wonder why. Why is nobody looking at that? So, the opportunities are there, the ideas are there. You just have to get enough people on board and be persistent. And if nothing else, I'm persistent to a fault. And that was one thing that my college professors told me, you got to take your eyes off the computer for 5 minutes and let somebody else look at it. But I won't stop. And my wife has also asked me, if you get this, if you get the brain bank, or you get a bill passed or something like that, are you going to feel like you've done enough? The short answer is no. The short answer is no. The short answer is no. I'm going to realize I made it that far, and I can go that much further, because now I have something to stand on. So, I think as a community, we're definitely getting stronger and more powerful, and we're speaking as one, which is good. We're not screaming and yelling. We're being respectful. We're asking for people to listen. And when they do finally sit down for 2 seconds and listen to your story, they realize how important it is. But it's really up to us as parents on the base level to just work every single day to make sure that we're securing our children's legacies and giving them exactly what they would have wanted us to do. I feel every single day that we were put here for a reason. This is a mission that we were given. We didn't know what it was going to be. On the day of our daughter's funeral, the one thing that stuck out to me at that point, the whole entire funeral, I didn't cry, because I think I was out of tears at that point. But the one part that broke me was, and usually the person giving the procession, the father, the whatever, the pastor, we'll kind of give you a preview of what they're going to say. We didn't get any of that. He just went up and did his thing because it was just, they went to school at a Catholic school, so it was the same group of people. And what he said was that when JC got to heaven, she said, but I only had 8 years. And he said, but look what you did with those 8 years. And that's what every day we live with, is that they were put here for such a short time, on loan to us, even if you want to look at it like that, to put us on a path. And so we're not going to stop. There's not a force on this planet that is going to stop me or stop you from what we're doing. And there's nothing you can do to us that is going to be worse than what we've been through. So just understand that the persistence level that parents like us have is unmatched.
You're up against it. For sure. Like, I mean, if you think we're like, this community is, yes, like if you think that just telling us like, oh no, that's not going to work, or like this could be a problem, or, you know, like, we will figure it out. We will. I mean, just like you said, the testament of what we have gone through, you know, to be able to deal with the loss of a child and then turn around and make the decision that you are still going to remain a productive and driving member for like the good of society. I think that in of itself is like, wow, that's a different level of human right there, or a human that's experienced kind of a different level of things that is now, you know, motivated in just a different way. And then you also look at the persistence that we have to show. My personal fight in that, trying to, you know, panic about what it is and how to treat it and where to go and what to do and how to manage it. It was very short, very short. But I know some people who, you know, they've got kids who are now, you know, teenage survivors who went through treatments for years of managing this stuff and dealing with that and being able to push through. And I think the vast majority of us understand the concept that, like, you gotta, you know, they're gonna go largely the way that we go, right? And so when we're going to radiation, it's like, I've got a brave face on and I'm holding their hand and we're walking in there and everything's gonna be just fine, you know? And so the fact that we can do that for some of us for years, and you think that saying, no, we don't think this fits our agenda is going to, you know, stop what we've got going on, that's crazy. I mean, it is certainly going to be, you know, it'll always be a fight for us. But I think that, you know, we're just the guys for it, right? I said it earlier. And we as a community are just the folks for it. You know, you mentioned some interesting things earlier about WU. I wrote down KU because KU has an incredible medical system. They've got a smaller pediatric treatment, but they work very closely with Children's Mercy, and obviously the state of Kansas is extremely invested in KU. And so I'm wondering if there's, you know, some opportunities there. So that's, you know, great idea, you know, good rabbit hole for me to, you know, kind of go down and see what I can chase out of that. So I appreciate that. That's a great idea. Are you coming to CureFest?
Yep, we'll be there.
Awesome. Really hope we get a chance to meet. Well, we're going to meet in person for sure. Yeah. Does your family come?
Well, this year it's just going to be my wife and I because like I said, our 17-year-old just graduated, so it'll be her first year of college. So she didn't want to take that a week off, a week into school. So this year it'll just be my wife and I. I don't know if we're going to set up a table at Freedom Plaza this year. We might just kind of take it in, and, you know, this will be our sixth year going. So we might just take it in this year, but either way, I mean, we love going. CureFest for us, which was really cool. Last year, I had Dina Sherwood on the podcast, which is really awesome. And then she gave me the incredible honor to be able to speak at CureFest last year, which was really cool. But CureFest for us, our daughter passed in 2021 in July, and then we did go that September of that year. We weren't sure if that was where we needed to be or if that was going to be okay for us. And it was by far the best decision we ever made because we were still very, very much in the grief process at that. But we met amazing people that year that we still are in contact with now. And our, to date myself, our Rolodex is still growing, and which has been incredible because it means there's that many people that understand. That means we're growing. Last year, the CureFest was by far probably the biggest that I've ever seen it, you know, minus the issues that we had in Freedom Plaza with police and all that other crap. But, you know, it was by far the biggest. It was huge, and it was amazing because more and more organizations are coming together, more and more people are coming together. I hate that we're losing more people, and that, that the light the candle is, that group of people is getting bigger. But we're now realizing that we're all in this together, and nobody's there ever having to do it alone. Which, again, like we go back to the beginning, I feel like during diagnosis, or you're waiting for those doctors to come in, you're alone. You're on an island. And CureFest gives us that ability to realize we're not, and we're around people that are going to be there for us no matter what. People from all across the country, even Canada and other countries, they're there, and they're there for you. And like I said, I've got phone numbers and emails and all this stuff that at any point in time I could reach out to somebody and say, listen, this is what's going on, or can you help me with this? And because, we spoke, and I realized this is a part of the world that you're dealing with, and ideas for these legislative processes and all that kind of stuff. That's where a lot of it comes from, is these people that understand us. And so I love it. I think it's amazing. I hate that it's so big and that it has to be, like I always say that I think that all of us in this space are the antithesis of a business. Like, we want to go out of business because we're not needed anymore, and
100%.
So one day,
Absolutely.
hopefully.
Wish our number one goal is to have 0 applications for assistance, right? And to need to really pivot hard and go find something else to do. I would love that more than anything. Janelle went to CureFest. Let's see, McKenna passed in February, late February. And so Janelle went that following August with some close friends, because I was kind of in that absolutely not at this time area, like kind of zone of grief. And so she went and had a great experience. And then I went the following year, which was last year. And our daughter, who was then coming into her junior year, participated in Climb the Hill on that Friday, advocating for Give Kids a Chance. I had been working with Nancy on the email side of Give Kids a Chance. And so I actually, because I was in DC, even though Climb the Hill is all about kids, right? They really want to keep the parents out of that. It's kid-led, teenager-led. They take the groups of kids to the offices, do their thing. But Janelle and I and a couple other advocates from Missouri had an opportunity to go separately as parents to some different offices and sit down with some staffers and basically advocate for Give Kids a Chance as well. And it was, again, life-changing, really. The experience to know that I was there doing, I just felt like a lot of times, alluding to, like you mentioned earlier, feeling like we failed, right? I think that there's a piece of that can present is I feel like I let McKenna down, which is, it's a tough pill to swallow. But when I show up in places like that and do stuff like that, I really am comfortable with the fact that I'm making her proud, and I kind of use that as a driving force. And so, I again, speaking to our community in general, you mentioned those issues that we had at CureFest down on Freedom Plaza, and everybody took off, rightfully so. But did you see how many people came back?
Yeah,
A
it
lot.
was
Not everybody, but a
right.
lot. A lot of people came back, and I went back, and I thought it was, and they said, this is the type of community that, that kind of thing right there is not going to run us off. Certain people obviously may not be comfortable, coming back after something like that, which wound up being nothing from my understanding, but better safe than sorry. And so, then the number of people that come back, despite the fact that we kind of didn't really know, but it was like, look, they said they're going back on. I'm going back down there. And I was not going to miss the opportunity to go up and say her name. There was, again, when you say there's nothing that's going to keep us from doing what we feel like we need to do in this space, there was nothing that was going to keep me from going down there and saying her name that night. So I think that is the driving force behind this community, with, again, as we continue to work together and make more connections, and our voice gets stronger, eventually we will reach the, unstoppable force. We just got to keep working on it.
It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a long time. The goal obviously is to make it happen before we're up there, hugging our kids again. But, and the only thing you want to do is say, did we make you proud? Did we do enough? And that's the hope. I say it all. I joke around saying that, if I don't do anything, that she'll haunt me. And it's just because that's just the kind of personality that they had, and that, to be goofy and always make light of a horrible situation. Somehow they managed to laugh and smile and show us that, life isn't always about these horrible times that we can make a good situation out of a bad situation. We had, we weren't able to go back down there last year after it happened. Our daughter was severe anxiety, and there was just
Yeah.
no way we could take her back down there. And we
That
had
happened to a
another,
lot of the kids I know.
yeah, and another family was with us, and it was affecting everybody really bad. So we decided not to. But I'm, one of the people that we were with, her and her son went back down there. So I mean, I'm glad that it didn't keep people away. And I think at that point it was a lot of anger, for somebody to do something stupid. Obviously it had nothing to do with us. It was just
No.
being dumb and thinking about themselves and how can they make things even more difficult on a community that's already struggling. But again, I'm glad that the show decided to continue and they decided to show their strength and community as who we are. But it was overall, it's always a great opportunity. It's always I encourage, obviously the question comes up all the time, is it only for people that are going through it? No, it's not. I encourage anybody. We have a really good friend of ours that travels and down there from Kentucky. Actually, she comes every year just as a supporter of us.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not connected to it in any way, but she's incredible. And she comes down there to be with us. And that's the people that we need. We need those people that are on the outside. And to be honest with you, I would love more than anything to see any representative to come down there and see it, because they don't. We're right there in your backyard, literally. And I realize that CureFest generally happens during recess, which I mean should be reserved for kindergartners, not for Congress, but whatever. But you're not there. And you should be, because we're the people that you're supposed to support. We want to see you there. Come and see what's going on in the world. Come and see what's really happening and be a part of things. Come to the Golden Toast dinner and hear the speeches from these kids. Walk with us during the march to the Capitol. Give us an opportunity to tell you. Just stop and listen to our stories. If you take 5 minutes out of your day and speak to any of these kids, any of them at all, and they will change your perspective on life. 100%, they will change your perspective on life. All you have to do is spend that 5 minutes. We every year, again, we're losing some amazing people. We lost Kerrigan, who was an incredible human being.
She spoke at that Cure Fest.
She did.
Yep.
She was very, very sick.
Yep.
And and the year prior, she has the most incredible singing voice and did everything with like one lung, right? I mean, she just went up there and did it, and it was incredible. And was an inspiration. All these kids, Katie Hastings, I mean, they're incredible inspirations to our community, and we've lost them. But they're
Michaela Nalon just passed.
right, with smiles on their faces. You know what I mean? Because they know they're leaving behind a legacy that is going to change the world. And I say that our daughters' names deserve to be in lights, just not like this. But they're leaving behind legacies, and they will change the world. It's going to take us a while to realize it. But if you're anything like me, you've had reach outs, I have text messages on my phone from right after our daughter passed. I have no idea who the people are. No idea. Mm-hmm. Because the community comes together for you. They're there. Our children touch people in ways that we're still feeling today, that you wake up in the morning and think, I could do this, but what about this? Kind of thinking, I want to change those bracelets that used to say, what would Jesus do, to what would JC do? And that's how I live my life sometimes. What would she do today? How would she feel about this? How would she be treating this? And we spend a majority of our time not sad, but laughing at all the goofy things that she did and the way she was, because that's what she would have wanted. That's what our kids would have wanted for us. Yeah, you can be sad that I'm not here, but also remember me for who I was, and always can make a great situation or a terrible situation funny and
absolutely.
And
that is definitely the theme around our house a lot, is just, funny stories, cracking up, remembering all of the good times, remembering all of her shenanigans. She was always up to something, which is just great. And driving her sister crazy, middle child, older sister. So obviously we're stealing all the clothes, and we're stealing the shoes, and we're doing all the makeup and all the girl stuff as Avery's getting older and older, and McKenna's just right behind her. But then also she's got this baby brother who is clearly like her job in the world. And so she's dragging him around everywhere. And as he grows up, those two are potentially like, they look like they could be twins. He wound up being a bigger dude, and so she was always a super petite thing. And so when she was 10 and he was like 8, they looked like they could have been twins, right? And they acted like they were twins. I mean, best friends for 10 minutes and then mortal enemies for the next 10, and on to the next prank, and telling on you, and I don't know. It was, and so, yeah, just that whole dynamic. And, I think it's part of the process is I think a lot of people are like, devastated that dynamic has changed so much. And then I think that a lot of times we can try to jump at wanting to like recreate it, or how do we cling to it being the same? And for me, that when I move into that, it becomes kind of painful. Right. And for us, it's about embracing it being different, but also absolutely never letting go of those memories, and her really assuming a position, like you said, as a driving force in my legacy, and me feeling like obviously she was robbed of the opportunity to create a legacy. And so I think a lot of us share the idea that, well, we're going to create one for her. So here we go. And then, and my kids as well. Avery has gone into, and who knows, she might have wanted to do this anyway, but she's gone into nursing. She's gotten, as a junior, she got her CNA and is moving into the medical field. She has mentioned multiple times about potentially going into pediatric oncology, neurology, something like that. Clearly, McKenna has become a driving force in what will be Avery's legacy. She is extremely well put together, I think, for a 17-year-old as far as public speaking. We have her speak at lots of events. She's done Climb the Hill. She's kind of she's a little bit of an administrator like her mom. And so she, extremely involved. Her brother, now, he's 10, he'll be 11 in August. But last year he was like, no, that sounds like it might be kind of boring. I don't do all that walking. He's 9 years old. Okay, whatever. Stayed home with grandma and grandpa. Well, he heard his sister talk about it. He heard me and his mom talk about it. And now he was bent out of shape because he came to the table to ask me if he could jump in on the email campaign that we were doing for Give Kids a Chance. But it was right after it had gotten passed. I was like, well, it's kind of over. And he's like, okay, you got to get me in on the next one. And I'm like, all right, are you going to DC with us this year? Absolutely. I'm coming. I'm ready. And so, creating that legacy for each of them, and her being such a piece of that. I was going to say, I listened to you. One of the points you were mentioning earlier is really expounding and expanding that group of people who don't have, and we chatted about it, in the beginning, who don't have that direct contact. And that being, I listened to your interview with PJ Myers, I believe was her name.
Yep.
And you guys talked about that a lot as that being the kind of the recognizable next step, right? Like, we have an incredible community that, again, we'd love for it to be smaller. But, when a parent receives the diagnosis for their child, they become a member of this community, whether they're active or not, right? But And we're doing, I think, collectively pretty close to as much as we personally can. And that next step is getting those people that don't have that direct connection, whether that's through donors, whether that's through, participation on the legal side, or on the legislation side, like we talked about earlier. But I agree 100%, engaging, that the community at large, if you will. And far and away, my experience has been, just like you mentioned, when you talk to the staffers who meet with the kids at Climb the Hill, and they do the same thing all day long. They're meeting with people who want to get stuff passed, and they're working on these different bills and these executive orders. They're doing the same thing all day long. But there's something about when it's a group of kids who have experienced, they don't have their parents in there telling them what to say or dominating the conversation or, cutting them off or anything. Like, they're allowed to say, they're allowed to tell their story however they want to tell it. And you've got kids who are actively in treatment. Okay. So they are telling these staffers what it's like to go through chemo at 14 or 12 or 9 and not be able to do the things that regular kids can do, and how devastating that can be, how hard it is on your body. I've got to miss school, all of these things. And then we've also got survivors. So we've got kids who were, maybe in treatment 10 years ago. And now we're starting to, God help some of them, experience some side effects and some long-term complications that maybe we didn't even know were a possibility, 10 years ago. And so these kids are telling them about, their experience going through it and what they're living with now and how that creates complications for sometimes their everyday life, their future life, whatever it might be. And then you've also got in the same room kids like my kids who are sitting there talking about, their best friend, their sister dying, and what that's like for you to deal with that. These staffers say across the board, it is one of the most moving and solid days of advocacy that they see year after year, right? Like they know that this is, and so more of them invested, and also the ones that I communicated with through that email campaign. We had teams, I probably had 12 teams from across the US that had anywhere from 8 to 10 members. And essentially what we were doing was emailing a staffer in a senator's office, and the team leader would introduce themselves, let them know we're talking about the Give Kids a Chance Act, Michaela Nalon, we're looking for support. And then I wanted to introduce you to some folks who have been directly impacted by pediatric cancer, so you can understand that while the numbers of patients may not be so huge, how wild this is for these people to live through. And so then the next day, an advocate, whether it was a kid or a parent, would email their story. And then the next day they'd email their story. And those staffers said, by and large, that was the most effective email campaign that they have seen or felt or been on the receiving end. They engaged extremely well. Again, most of what it was, we weren't trying to commit, to Zooms or to any meetings or anything like that. We were just dumping them, driving them to when those vote came up in Senate chamber, or if they had the opportunity to vote, please vote yes, please vote yes. And those staffers were, they were moved. And just like you said, everybody who talks to these kids gets moved, right? And so, just the ability to keep it moving and keep building that engagement with those outside, if you will. I hate to call it that, but outside of the direct community, and then how they could if they get invested, how they could kind of spider web out from their business or whatever they're doing. So I think that there's a ton of opportunity, but just like we keep coming back to, there's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very, very big uphill battle every single day, and nothing's going to be handed to us, and we're going to have to bust our ass to make it happen. But on a just a side little note there, anybody that's looking to get into this, staffers in any office are your best friends.
Sure.
They are the direct ears and eyes and everything to a senator, representative, anything. They're the ones that are going to decide what gets pushed to the top of the pile in all reality. So staffers are your best friends. Never discount the fact that that's who you're talking to.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it can be frustrating. I can be honest. It can be frustrating. You walk into an office and those people that are always on camera that you see on TV are never there.
Right.
But the people that really are the most important ones are those staffers, those ones that are there that are doing a lot of the legwork. It's kind of like nurses and doctors, right? Nurses are doing all the work, and doctors come in and take the credit. But listen, and we've had really good doctors. Not a kick on you guys, but yeah, that's just that level of people. Those are the ones you really want to get in with and take the opportunities to tell your story. And listen, the kids, that's always the most impactful, to be able to tell it from their eyes. You mentioned PJ. If you've ever been to CureFest, you've been to the March to the Capitol, she is by far the voice of that march. You will hear her, and she knows that. She try to keep up with that cadence. Good luck.
We did it last year.
It is tough, but her daughter, Ilani, is incredibly grown up for her age and will talk to anybody. Will just, tell her story without script, without guidance, without anything, will just go through it. And that's indicative of a lot of these kids to be able to kind of just go into an office and tell it from their side, because, for obvious, even us, we're outsiders to that. And they're going through it, they're feeling it, they're going through the chemo, they're feeling the side effects on, one-on-one. And so for them to tell their stories, it is truly the most impactful thing. And I'd have to believe that if I was on the outside looking in and not connected to this community, talking to a child going through this, that's what would affect me the most. Not that we don't have a voice as parents being their advocates, but listening to them, tell exactly what they're feeling and what they're going through. That's the emotion, that's the impact we need. So I hope that more and more kids, I don't want them to be a part of this, but I hope that they continue to step up and tell their stories and go out there and don't be afraid. You mentioned, your daughter in nursing, and, our 17-year-old, she's going into child life. That's going to be her career path because of everything that her sister went through. And, our oldest, was always wanted to be a business owner. That's what she's going to do. But they both carry their sister in different ways. But I know that it guides their life, and, it's, they talk to her, she talks to them. And this is just, the way that they're going to grow up. But, they shouldn't have to go through life talking to their sibling as a memory, as an angel, that kind of stuff. They should be able to have them in experiencing everything together. But the way that they turn that pain into purpose, essentially, and create something on is really that makes us those proud parent moments, that you're super proud of what they're doing on their own and making their own choices. And that's so huge, and what they can provide to that world, in the medical world, the child life world, that kind of stuff, based on experiences, is going to be so incredible to patients moving forward, that impact. So it's awesome for you guys. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how all this pans out and just watch them grow. I think it's incredible.
Absolutely.
But listen, I'll be honest with you. I think that, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours.
I do too.
But what I would like to do is just, you mentioned it in the beginning, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to just tell us just a quick little bit about Brave Like McKenna, the foundation, but also where people can find it and how they can help.
Absolutely. Brave Like McKenna is the name of the foundation. Primarily what we do is provide direct financial family support to those in the fight with a pediatric cancer diagnosis in the household. And they can find us at bravelikeMcKenna.org. It's all one word. We have, just like you mentioned, resources tabs, a lot of other things up there, but there's a very simple application to fill out if you need family assistance or if you know someone who does. We work with social workers who are helping families out and filling some of these out. It doesn't have to come directly from the parent. We understand 100% that they are absolutely buried. And so that's primarily what we do. bravelikeMcKenna.org is the website. And then again, we're kind of moving into the advocacy space a little bit, and the awareness stuff in the Kansas City area and growing outside of there. We've got a couple of events, big events that we do, and then some smaller partnerships throughout the year to do fundraising. We've got a big golf tournament that we do in May, and then right around McKenna's birthday, which is 9/9, but it kind of depends on the calendar for each year, we do what's called a glow walk, and we go up to the high school up the street, and they've been so gracious to all of the school communities, and they'll let us use their parking lot. And they've got this gorgeous little trail system that kind of goes back through the woods, and we set up some booths and do some food and really kind of celebrate her birthday. And this one we kind of do for the kids. Again, it was a couple years ago when we started it, and they're getting bigger and bigger now, but it's definitely geared more towards them. And so those are our two main events. And then, we do some, like I said, some other smaller dine out nights and things like that. And all of 100% of that money goes to family support or putting on the next event. We don't have nobody's got a salary. We don't pay anything like that. So all of that money right now is going directly towards those families, and we need as much as we can get, because again, just like the rate of application we've noticed in 2 years has only gone up as we probably grow, on visibility stage, and also as diagnoses are also, continuing to grow. But then we also want to help as many people as we can, as much as we can. And so we said, every year, if you're still in the fight, you can reapply. And so now that we've been doing it, for a couple of years, we're starting to also get folks that are in some of those longer term treatment situations that are reapplying, and we want to help them as well as continue to field the new applications. So creative and more fundraising is kind of one of the next things on our agenda for sure. And so yeah, that's about the foundation.
Awesome. No, I will listen. I hate fundraising. I'm just going to be completely honest with you.
The worst.
It's terrible. And truly, my wife and I say this all the time. We really thought it would be easier to raise money for this cause. I really thought it wouldn't be as difficult as it is, but it is. But I want everybody to, check out the organization, help if you can. If nothing else, share our story. We always say sharing is the best form of donation you can give us because it gives us attention to other people. And all we need is that one big donor that wants to just jump in there and help us all out. You can head to their website, bravelikemckenna.org. Also, if you go to our website at battlecornglobal.org and hit the resources tab, you will see a link for Brave Like McKenna on our page right there. So feel free to check them out or any of the other resources. We're all in this together, all making this effort together. And the more we have, the stronger we are. It's, fundraising is difficult. Namesake is difficult, getting us out there. We don't have commercials or billboards. It's just us. It's on the internet. It's social media, but we're going to get there. It's probably one of the proudest things for us when we're at CureFest and people recognize who we are. And it's not because we're donating millions of dollars. It's because we're present and we're consistent, and that's what it takes, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And these partnerships and friendships grow, and we continue to make a huge difference. And our kids can, tell us that they're proud of us in their own little way, and that's what we're hoping for. So everybody, I'll put all the links will be in the description, so you can check that out and help if you can. And like I said, sharing is the best form of donation that we can ever ask for, because financial assistance with any of this, just on another side note, is a lot of difficulties going through this. Bills don't stop. The world doesn't stop. When you're traveling, when you're taking time off, the world still comes at you. So every little bit helps. But Keith, thank you so much for being with me today and sharing. And like I said, we could talk for hours, and maybe we'll come back and do this again and fill in all the gaps if we left any. But
Sure.
Everybody, check out bravelikemckenna.org. And like I said, you can head to our website in the resources tab as well and check all the links below. And anything else before we go?
No, just thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing to, work with you in the future for sure. I think that you and I are a lot alike, and we could probably do some things together. So I look forward to growing that relationship with you.
Me too, my friend. I think we're a small breed of fathers on the front lines, and we're going to continue to grow that because I think our voices need to be heard just like everybody else. So I appreciate it once again. Thank you for joining me today, and we will see everybody else next week.